Welcome to DeltaFlauge Outdoors podcast brought to you by Julius Craig. On today's episode, I have KJ Quinn on FaceTime with me. He's a Bassmaster Elite Angler out of Bethel University, which is like the Super Bowl of colleges for bass fishing. So, I think they've won a couple championships through it and everything. So, just step into it. And how you doing, KJ?
Doing well. How about yourself, man?
Oh, doing good. Thank you for taking your time and talking to us today. We truly appreciative of it.
Yes, sir. I'm
No,
glad to be.
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying I'm glad to be on here.
Oh, thank you.
Having me on.
Thank you. Just talk. I'm gonna let you just tell us about yourself, man. Like
All right,
where did it start?
Born and raised out of Catawba, North Carolina. Ever since I could walk, I had a fishing pole in my hand, and I've been fishing ever since I can remember. My dad and my grandpa, I can't thank them enough for everything that they've done and taught me growing up fishing wise every day. That people be getting out of school, going and hanging out at the buddy's house or doing practices for basketball, baseball, yada yada yada. I was headed to the lake, and that's where I spent my time. And I spent all my time on the water, learning, and I mean that's the whole key to everything is just having time and putting time in on the water. And I've put a lot of time in. I've learned a lot of information over the years. I've got to go through the high school fishing and did really well there. Actually ended up winning a national championship in high school and followed up and went into Bethel University. And, I got at Bethel University, and it was really an honor to be there because the guys that was there before me, they're just some straight hammers. I mean, and they've won so many different tournaments, so many national championships and everything else. And it's just like to get to go there was a blessing for me. And whenever I got there, it was just incredible how much knowledge I gained. It's because Bethel is central location, was in West Tennessee, a small little school, but the people that was coming to Bethel, Gary Mason, the coach, he recruited from all over the United States. So we got to get information from Washington, New York, Florida, Texas, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, everywhere we got information. But the kids that were coming in are some hammers. They knew about the fishing, and they knew what it was about. So I got to actually take that to my advantage, and I would get, what's the best baits from Washington? What's the best baits from New York? What's the best ones from Pennsylvania? And got to go in and add that in to my fishing, my platform. And, I have some baits from North Carolina that's, some little secret tips, little baits that I've been using for years and years, and combined all that together and is very successful. And I believe that's one of the reasons why Bethel is such a, very successful college fishing platform is because they take information from all over the United States, and you combine that into one. And fish are very similar. I mean, they fish about the same from all the way out west in California to the East Coast. Everywhere in between, they still have natural, their abilities and their instincts are just about the same. But there's different types of ways and techniques to catch them fish that might be a little better over here and might be a little better over there. But if you take something that might be really good in North Carolina and apply it out west, out on, in Washington or somewhere like that, it'll still catch fish, but it's something that them fish don't see all the time. You take something from Washington, bring it back to North Carolina, it's something that they don't see all the time, but it's something that still works very good. It works very well at other places in the country, and it makes it to where you can catch a lot more fish just by having something a little different. And that's one of the key things in bass fishing nowadays. It's not a matter of going out and, locating a fish. That is huge. It's just a huge factor. You got to learn your electronics. You got to learn how to read it. You got to know how to see where fish are probably going to be set up at. But nowadays, it's not very hard for somebody to hop in their boat, and they got, 412s at, 212s at the back, 212s at the front, and you scan down a ledge, and he's 100 feet away, and you can see that school of fish.
Yeah.
And anybody can turn around, they get on their live scope, they can look, and they can see how many fish are there, kind of what they're reacting to. But being able to have something that's unique and different is a huge ball player. And, that's what I use all the time whenever I'm fishing. I mean, one of my companies is Queen Tackle. That's mine and my dad's company, but we deal in all strictly tungsten tackle. And with having that tungsten tackle, it's something that's different. It's something that's not everybody else's regular lead jig. When that jig goes down to the bottom and that head hits the bottom, or you bounce it off some rocks or a limb or anything, it clicks. It's a different sound. It's something that's different than everybody else and the brother is using. Same way with our Queen Tackle switch-bladed jig. When that blade comes back and it's hitting the head of that tungsten jig, it's a complete different sound than everybody else's vibrating jig. It's something that's unique, something that sticks out. And so the fish, that's what they want. They want something different because they've heard 1,000 rattle traps. They've heard, 1,000 different types of crankbaits. And sometimes just having something that's different really helps you excel. And I used, whenever I went through, I qualified after my first year out of college. Actually, during college, we come out with the Queen Tackle switch-bladed jig. And I had 2 prototypes, and that was it. We fished a college tournament at Lake Gunnersville. And it was incredible. I had 28 and a half pounds, barely missed winning it, finished second, missed it by like a half pound. Whenever we were there, though, like one of my buddies, he had just a regular vibrating jig, and I had mine. And it was like a 7-to-1 difference in it. It's just crazy the difference that it made having that tungsten bladed jig. And, I used it through college that whole year, ended up winning Team of the Year in Bassmasters, and went on after that to fish the Opens. And my first year on the Opens, I actually qualified through them and made it into the Elite Series. And my first year on the Elite Series, I qualified and made it to this recent Bassmaster Classic. And
congratulations on that. I mean, that's a big accomplishment in the first,
Thank you very much. And throughout that, I used my Queen Tackle tungsten lures. I used something that was different, something that made me stick out from everybody else's baits that's getting thrown at them. And that's what's gave me a lot of my success, is having something that's different and unique.
That's what that like touch back on what you said, like with the front facing sonar and all that. It's like I was doing a podcast earlier, and I was talking about how much stuff has advanced in the past few years from the deer hunting world to bass fishing. And it's like, and I got a little far out because but it's like they're wanting to ban cellular cameras in certain states. And I'm like, what's the difference in the cellular camera sending you a picture and the front facing sonar on your boat? Like, if you want to, and I'm not trying to, I think we should use everything we have because, I mean,
I agree.
But it's like, what's the difference in the two? And it's like, and it's like, that's what, it just kind of cracked me up because it's like, how can you say that's going to lead to these guys he's sitting on his couch in his underwear and he sees a deer out there and he's going to run and kill it. Most guys that are doing that have their deer feeder set up where they can see it from their window to start with. So it's like, it's not making a difference.
Open up the back kit and, aim out and
it's like, just because you can see it on the screen doesn't mean you're going to make it bite.
And that's the truth.
And it's
like factors behind it. You can get out there, you can see them fish. I mean, nowadays, live sonar, you see him swimming there. I mean, it's not a question about it. He's there. It's not like, well, I'm not sure if there's fish in this brush pile anymore. It's scan over there, you look at it. It's like, well, there's 3 of them there. Let's throw a jerkbait over top of it. Well, they're not even looking at it. Let's try something else. Well, he kind of looked at it, but that's the wrong color. Let's try something different. Throw back in there, and he bites it. It's like you got something figured out. And that's the whole key, is having something that's unique and different in order to catch those fish that you can see nowadays. Because not just, certain people that can see them. Everybody can see these fish.
Yeah, nobody's got an advantage. Everybody's got it. And it's like, like some people, the proponents of that, they want to holler, oh, well, take all the electronics away from them, they wouldn't catch fish. It's like, you want to go back to the original days with, Martin, Mann, Dance, Jimmy, Jones, everybody. Well, they had the top of the line electronics then. It's like, you take the old flashers. You might be a little young to remember those.
Hey, I used to run a flasher back way in the day.
I still know.
Never had no other graph except for a flasher on his boat.
If you know how to run it,
it's deadly.
It's deadly, and it's like I have a 2001 model Bumblebee that I run, and my flasher still works on it. I didn't. Most the boats that back then didn't in 2000 early 2000s didn't have the flasher still. This one had the flasher. Mine still works. I'll use it every now and then because I understand it. But I have I put the Panoptix Garmin on it last year. The first time out, I was like, whoa, that little twit. You can see your bait. Like I was fishing I think I was throwing like a wacky worm or something. Shaky head. I don't remember exactly what I was doing, but it was with and I barely twitched, and it moves like on the screen, and I'm like, holy crap, I didn't pull that hard, like, and it was just an eye opener right then. That little bit within the first 5 minutes, I was like, I'm barely. So it's making that much of a difference there. That's okay. That's why I'm not producing the fish that I should be producing when I know there's fish there, and ended up changing. Like I think I was like, man, I'm gonna be like the hunchback after this. I think I spent every day for like a week, like looking straight down at that screen, like just.
And it was like running into the bank because you're sitting there staring at the.
Yep. It was like, and one of the boys fishing with me is in the back of the boat, and he's like, "What are you doing?" Because he didn't know I'd had all that on there, and I'm like, and we were pre-fishing for a little club tournament. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I was like, I didn't tell you to put this on here." He's like, "No." I'm like, "Oh, oops." And he's like, no wonder we're out here in the middle. I was like, "What are we fishing?" And he's like, "I'm looking at the bank like 50 feet away." And I'm like, well, "Why are we not flipping the banks? What is he doing?" And I'm fishing like 17, 18 feet of water, and I was like, there's fish down here. And he comes up there, he looks at it, he's like, that's the fish swimming around? I'm like, yeah. He's like, that's your bait going down? I was like, yeah. He's like, this is cool. I'm like, oh, it's a pain in the butt. It'll piss you off in a heartbeat.
And that's one of the keyest things, too, about your electronics. A lot of times people get caught up and drawn into the much. There's a fine line in between using your equipment and being efficient with your equipment and not getting overwhelmed with the fact that you can see every single thing out there swimming.
Yep.
Because you get caught up and get off the track, and you'll lose. You'll sit there and stare at your graph, and you'll be like, "Oh, well, there went an hour by, and there goes an hour of your day by." It's like,
you didn't catch a fish, and you're like, uh-oh, and then that gets in your brain, and you start scrambling, and this time goes by this, and it's like. What was it? The Florida tournament a few weeks back, John Cox said he spent 3 hours to catch that 11-pounder. That's, that's a lot of time for it. It was a great payoff.
It was.
But I don't think I could have stuck it out because I'd have been in my head.
I don't know if he caught the same one or not, but me and him started on that exact. I don't know if it's the exact same fish, but we started on one that was 10 plus.
Yeah.
And I beat him there first. I get there. There's one that was like 7 pounds here, and that 10 to 11 was sitting right like about 10, 15 yards down the bank from him. And I get up there, and I'm like, oh, no, Johnny, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm pulling down right in the middle of these. And he come in, he like tried throwing at the first, and I made sure I casted it, made sure I knew all about it. Yeah. And then started to ease back around to cast towards the other one. I started casting on it. And he was a good man. He's like, hey, you know exactly where they're at, dude. You fish them, go for it. And I ended up catching both the bucks off of it, and the female, the 7, she was gone. I don't know what happened to her. I never did see that fish, but that 10 to 11 stayed, and it was there for 3 hours, 3.5 hours. I fished for 3.5 hours. But I knew if I catch that fish,
what it was going to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just one extra fish in my 5. Yeah. It's like it's like adding an extra fish or
6 fish.
7 fish to the bag.
Yeah.
So it's like if I just catch this fish right here, my day is made. I go and scrap out some 2.5 pounders, and I'm going to be good. And I spent a long time on that fish, and I was really confident that I was going to catch it. It stayed up there the whole time. It chased brim, and I mean, it'd make a wake this tall, chasing shiners off his back. Dude, any second, I'm going to catch this fish. I threw a worm in there, and it rolled over on its side. It rolled up my heart. You could probably see out of the chest at the time. And, man, it rolled, and then rolled back over and chased the brim 10 feet out of the bed. And then I have no clue what happened to that fish. I'm not very sure. It was there, gone. Just completely disappeared. And, I burned 3.5 hours of my day fishing for it. And, it sucks whenever you do that.
Yeah.
But if you get that fish in, then you're sitting there looking like a hero.
Risk reward. I mean, it's...
Exactly. And that's another like fine line with like sight fishing and stuff. It's like, how much time are you going to spend on this fish before you either say, I'm going to catch this fish, or I have to leave this fish because I'm burning my time up. But like, a fish like that, it's something that it's almost like just like a mental thing almost. It's kind of like it's between you and the fish.
Yep.
It's like, I'm going to catch you. I spent too much time on you
Well,
now. But
and that
you work her and work her and work her, and then she finally ends up leaving, and it's just like, man, it's heartbreaking. It really is.
I can imagine, because like you said, it's a make or break moment, because you spent 40% of your day roughly on that one fish, and then it's like you leave that, and say I don't know what you had in your live well at that point, but say you're sitting on zero. Now you're like, oh crap, and it's like,
I only had fish. I had like a 2.5 and like a 1.5 pounds, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, kind of starting sweating, and then I kept running around, checking some different stuff, and like I just had a gut feeling in me. It's like, dude, get back to Harris, go back up there. You got a few places that had some fish in it. I marked a bunch of places that had like kind of like hidden off the wall. You had to jump some logs to get back into an area, and like push pole, and it opens back up, and like there was beds everywhere in there. And in practice, it was a lot of bucks, and I was like, man, I feel like the females are coming.
It's right there. It's right there.
So I went, jumped the logs, push pole through, did this, that, and another, and I get back there, and there she is. She's laying there, and I pop a 7.5. And, that salvaged my day the first day. Like, I had 15.5, something like that. And it was, with a 7.5 pounder, but it's something I had to have. You got to have a big one in Florida. That's the difference, man. And it's just like, it's like the next day out, I'm like, I didn't even go back down there to check on that 10. But she completely left that morning.
Yeah.
But I went with my gut feeling, and I had a better bag the second day, and even a better bag the third day.
Mm-hmm.
And in top 10 cut by like 6 ounces. I was, just barely made it, missed it, and I was like, gosh, man, I really wanted to be there. It's like you take a 1.5 pound out of your bag first day and add 9 pounds to it. Then look where you're sitting at.
Yeah, you'd have been sitting at a shot for the top. For the top.
Exactly.
And it's like, so that's like I saw with electronics and everything, and it's like you can have like the old the old saying, like, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And it's like you can have your electronics, but if you, like you stated earlier, if you don't know how to use everything that's at your disposal, it does you no good. It's like talking about the bait, y'all's y'all's style of clickbait.
Yep.
Years ago, I was fishing on Lake Darbon, and Ruston, North Louisiana. I was in the back of a guy's boat, and we both flipping jigs. It's like February, March, I don't remember. I mean, like, he's just tearing fish up. I'm like, what we throwing? What's the problem here? Like, well, go to looking at it, and I knew him. We were friends, and I looked, and he's like, here, I'll give you one. His jig, he had put a sponge under the skirt and glued it to the head, so that sponge was kind of bubbling, and he would put his scent in that sponge, and it's like that. It was killer on that lake. And I'll throw it every now and then on like a hard jig bite, and it'll pick up some fish because it's just something they don't see.
That's something different.
Something different, and it's like, putting something like that in a tube or whatever. Same concept. And but yeah, he was doing it with a jig, and I'm like, why is this dude catching so many fish on a jig? Like, what is he doing different than I'm? That was the only difference. And he's like, as soon as I switched to that, I started catching more fish. But it was like, just if he hadn't did that, and he shared the information with me, I'm like, dude, really? He's like, man, I went to college up here, and he's like, and I used to fish it all the time because they had a camp on it. He's like, and I was drunk one night and invented this bait. I'm like, good way to put it. He's like, myself and my roommate. He's like, we fished a lot up here and started doing really good with it. I'm like, I guess so. I mean, they'd never seen it, and it was just one of those things. And I'm like, pretty cool because it was just something different, and it was, but yeah, it's I guess that'll bring us up to the classic, getting to go to it. That was that's a lifelong goal of anybody in the industry.
It's just incredible. I mean, to get to go to the classic, and I finished 48th, not where I wanted to finish, but it was just an incredible experience being there. Just because, ever since I can remember, the last little bit of my memories has been in the Bassmaster Classic arena, And at the expo, sitting there as a little bitty boy, sitting looking at this big giant fish tank full of fish, and just think it's the most coolest, epic thing ever. And to go through high school and to go through college, and all I wanted to do was make it there, make it to the classic. I was fortunate enough in college. I fished the college classic championship and got to walk across the stage in Birmingham, and that was a really cool experience. But I wasn't in the classic itself, with them guys, and grow up dreaming about fishing with the guys, and actually jump in and be in the tournament with the guys is just incredible. It's a dream come true, really. I mean, ever since I was little, I dreamed of fishing in the Bassmaster Classic, and to finally make it there, it's awesome. It was an awesome experience, and a very tiring experience. I'm not gonna lie, I was absolutely exhausted. I've slept for about 2 days straight now, just trying to recuperate and get back ready for Santee next week. So it's definitely very go mode. Not much rest, but you don't need much rest whenever you're at the Bassmaster Classic.
Oh, I can imagine. Like I said, it's anybody that's ever done it, and like from the time they start competing, that's their dream of making it to there. And it's like, and if it's not your dream of making it to there, then you're doing the wrong thing.
You might as well leave, bud, because that's where it's at. That's where you want to be at. And it's to finally work. I mean, I've truly worked really hard. I've spent a lot of time on the water. I think it was like my sophomore year of college. I think there was 6 days through both semesters that I didn't go to the lake and go fishing. So it was literally like a week, and I think I was sick for 4 of those days, and I had to take finals on the other 3. So it's like, it's like that many days that I didn't spend out on the water practicing and learning and working. And every time you get on the water, you learn something. That's what people don't realize. Just even if you go and you don't really catch any fish, you've
still
learned something being out there. And that's what you got to take with you every time you go to the lake. You don't got to go to the lake and think of it as, this is just going to be a fun day. I'm just going to go whack some fish. And that's what you want to do. You want to go have fun catching fish. But you got to take every little detail, every little thing, every aspect that you figured out and learned that day, and add it to your memory book, and keep adding to it, and keep adding to it, and let that build up and build up and build up until you have a whole encyclopedia of bass fishing knowledge.
Yeah.
And it's really a huge difference maker. You look at some of them guys like Christie winning the classic. Man, hats off to him. He deserves it. He deserves to be there because day in, day out, he's out on the water. He's working his butt off every single day. He's working it. I mean, Chris, when we pull into the ramp of a morning, in practice, he's sitting there first thing at daylight. He's sitting at the rope ramp, waiting to go out, go fishing that day, ready for whenever we can get on the water. He's on the water. When I pull up in the afternoon and it's dark, it's daylight to dark. There's Christy. He's coming up. He's pulling up out of the water. And it's like that's the difference maker between being at the top and staying at the top is just putting the time into it.
That exactly. And I read an article a while back, about the late Aaron Martins talking about they were fishing. It may have been Havasu or something. It was like one of the U.S. Open style tournaments or whatever. I don't remember the exact. And paraphrasing the article, they said that they'd get there and he'd already be gone. They'd get back and he's still on the water. And they said they remember one day, like the last day of practice, they're sitting there and like everybody's like, man, where's Aaron at? He pulls up, loads his boat, pulls his truck to the side, they said, and just took off jogging. Like he went for a run. And they're like, what the heck, man? He comes back, he said, I just had to clear my head. And they're like, you've been fishing every day for the past week, daylight to dark, and you take a run now? Like it was just, and that's what they said. They were talking about how much work he put into it. And the guy that was talking about the article was a fan of the sport. He's like, I met him that day, and he was the one that wrote the article. He said, dude had been on the water, that's what they said, every day like that, goes for a run and comes back and talks to me like it was normal. And he's like, that was just the type of, and like how competitive he was, and how like he learned every time. That's what he talked about. He's like, same thing you just said. But it's like, to be competitive and rise in any outdoor industry-based thing, whether it's hunting or fishing, you have to put the work in. And
You do.
if you're not putting work in, you're not learning. And if
Correct.
you're learning is just, it's not whether it's you can learn everything that you wasn't supposed to do. Like,
Exactly.
how did everything went wrong. Why?
Knowledge back. You don't go catch fish. It's like, all right, well, what did I do wrong today to not be able to catch these fish? Like, what did I do different that I didn't do yesterday? I mean, and it's might even be that as much as, what else was the weather conditions? What was the factors of that? Why did I catch them so good yesterday? It was cloudy, overcast, and today you got high pressure, sunny skies. Where did these fish go to? Like, where did they back out to? And it's really just trying to stay, in tune with the fish. You got to stay, with the fish and know what they're doing, where they're going to, and staying with the biggest factor. And this is one of the biggest deals with fishing, for me at least. Now, I know a lot of other guys, they've talked about this, and it's, you have to play it by the day. You don't play it by the memory. You don't play it off of history. You don't play it off of past knowledge. Now, don't get me wrong, past knowledge is really, really good. It's really nice to have, local knowledge about different stuff, this, that, and another. But if you're not playing it by the weather conditions of that day, you're already hurting at the get-go. You got to study and stay off the conditions. And I noticed that last year whenever I was fishing the elites. It's like a cloudy day, the smallmouth, Champlain and St. Lawrence. If it's cloudy, you better stay out deep because them suckers weren't getting up shallow and feeding. If it's bright and sunny, you better get up shallow and get out from being out deep because they were up shallow feeding. And it's just like they changed every single day of the tournament. Even during the tournament, if you might have cloud cover in the morning and them smallies might be out deep, and then the sun breaks out for an hour or 2 hours.
And they move.
They move so fast.
Yep.
It's an instant change. Yep. The fish move, they go, they feed, and that's how they learn, or that's how you learn to follow them, is not by, how you did 2 days ago off this hole and caught all these fish, this, that, and another. Well, it might be, but what was your conditions then when you were catching them 2 days ago, and what is your conditions now? And if they're not there, where did they go to?
Yeah.
Where it's moving to. And that's one of the hardest factors for fishermen to really comprehend and break down and learn, because everybody goes out there, I'm bad about doing it too. You'll go out here and be like, oh man, well this point is just such a good point. I've caught so many fish off this point. Like, I know they're going to be one here. And and it's just, and the weather conditions don't set up for it. And you're sitting there trying to force a bite that's not even there. And hurting yourself because you're sitting there saying, well, I know this is really good stuff. Like, I know they should be one here, but if the conditions don't put the fish there, they're not going to be there. And that's one of the hardest factors in fishing, is getting past that, kind of the stubbornness. We're all a little stubborn. And the fish can be stubborn too.
Exactly.
So you got to get past that stubbornness of trying to force a bite, and instead of going with your gut instinct and just running with the bite and running with the pattern.
See, it's like one of the things, like, might just be me in my head. It's like, I know when I go out, if I catch a fish in the first few casts, I'm like, uh-oh. Because then, like, they say they quit, say you don't catch any more, and you're like, well, they were, why did I? And then you fight yourself getting away from that bait because you caught one or two right off the bat. And it's like, so if I start my morning off and I catch one or two right off the bat, I'm like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Like, let's throw it down and start over, because, like, I know I don't want to get hooked to that one thing.
Yeah,
it's like,
that's right. I mean, it is, and you can get caught up doing that very easily. And here's, for example, this last classic. I'm down there fishing, catching fish left and right. Probably caught 40 or 50 fish second day of the classic. It was just insane. Caught tons of fish. My thumb finally starting to heal up from just they were raw and bleeding after the tournament. And I was out there catching fish out of herring. First thing that morning, I went with my gut. I'm like, we got cloudy, overcast, nasty conditions. When we had this in practice, I was out in 40, 50 foot catching big, giant, largemouth out of herring. And it's like I was catching good ones doing that. So I kind of like, all right, I told myself the night before, I said, dude, you need to go on the bank, throw your switchblade, go get back in some mud, and you'll catch you a dang bag. I'm like, that's the way to catch a bag, is to go back in the mud and go do it. And I tried, that morning, get out there. It's overcast, cloudy, real nasty. Check my first drain. They're not in it, but the herring, I could just look at my panoptics. I could just tell they're all at the top. I'm like, all right, well, I know where they were schooling at the other day in practice. Let me just go check it out. I went there first day, and there was no fish in there at all. Went in there again. They're up just schooling, busting herring. I get in there and start catching some good fish, but it's like 2-pounder, pound 3/4, 2.5, 2 3/4, 2-pounder, pound 3/4, and then like I whacked on them for a long time. I sat there and caught fish, and I could see them. I could see fish in there with them that were big heads, big spots that were eating herring. You could see them shark and their backs come out of the water. You know they're big fish. And any second, you're just telling yourself, all right, how many of these fish do I have to weed through before I catch a big one? How many do I have to weed through? How many do I have to weed through? And you're catching them and catching them and catching them and catching them. You're like, man, and you're calling by ounces at a time. It's not the big calls that you need to be making at the classic. And I let myself get caught up in having fish completely school 360 around my boat and be sitting there seeing big ones. And I tried forcing that bite and forcing it. And I went to the other section of the lake, same different, I'm like, I finally, like, they were still feeding. I'm like, after catching 20 of them, I'm like, dude, all right, I'm just not calling. I got to move. I got to find the bigger fish. And I move, go to a different section. They're doing the same thing, different section. Whack on them, whack on them, whack on them. Catch another 15 of them. They still, I'm calling at that place, the ones that I had before, culling them out from the first place, and I'm still culling like a 1/4 pound here, a 1/4 pound. It's just like it's not enough, and I kept trying to force that bite, and I'm like, finally at like 2 o'clock, I'm like, dude, you told yourself what to go do today. Go freaking go do it, man. Go get on the bank and throw that switchblade. And I go back in some muddy water, and I pick up a crankbait, and I'm like, all right, not even thinking about it. The day before, I did lose a 6-pounder on it, and during the classic, had it all the way up the side of the boat, went down to lip it, had my thumb on its lip, and the crankbait flies out of its mouth. I dive head first in the water, grab it by its tail, and it swims out of my hands. And I could have cried. I mean, I'm telling you, I was just devastated.
I've been there.
A 6-pounder at Hartwell, that don't happen, like that's rare, man. And I had it in my grasp. I had it there, and it slipped out of my grasp. And, I picked back up my crankbait, and I started fishing. And I go down through there, and I have a big one, like probably 3.5, 4 pounds, just roll underneath it. And I seen it down about 3 or 4 foot down, and I just seen it flash, and I never felt anything. It never ate it, nothing. And then I go on down the bank, I catch another small one, and it has my crankbait like hooked on the side of the head. I'm like, they're not feeding on this plug right now. I'm like, go with your gut feeling. Pick up that blade. You told yourself to throw the blade. Pick it up. I picked it up, go down the bank, like 4 or 5 casts later, catch one like 4 pounds. And I'm just sitting there just, beating myself up because it's like, dude, if you would have been in there all day throwing that switchblade, you could have had a 20-pound bag possibly. It could have been very likely. But by this time, 2:30, and I got to be back in at 3, and I got a 20-minute run. So it's like I didn't have no time to run with it and go with it. Now, the whole time sitting there fishing the herring, my gut's telling me that I'm going to catch one of these 4 or 5 pounders that I'm sitting there looking at school. It's like one of these times he's going to slip up and I'm going to catch him. And I tried forcing that bite, and I still caught a ton of fish, but just never got that big quality. And it's like, and if you would have just, maybe even stuck with your gut from the get-go and just gone thrown that blade, it might have been a different outcome. It might have been story, but we can all say that after.
Yeah, the what ifs,
Exactly. You always can say what if, this, that, and another after you get done fishing, but being there in the moment and fishing it, you got to go with your instincts. And my instincts were telling me that whole morning that it's going to be a herring bite. It's going to be a herring deal. We have the weather for it. I mean, it's going to go down. And I tried forcing that bite, and it just didn't work out. And I tried, I finally said, all right, get to the bank. You got to go get your head. And I pop a big head, but it just wasn't enough to get me bumped up.
Yeah, it's too little too late. You waited too long in the day when you should have listened to yourself. And it's like you said you could see the fish. I'm sure popping a hair and everything. You was probably using your electronics and could see them.
Yep.
And that goes back to our conversation earlier about, you got to know when to pull away from those too. Like you said, like had you, 5 years ago, had you not been able to see what you're seeing on the screen, you'd have probably left them earlier.
Yeah, exactly, and that's one of the things too. It's like, if you don't sit there and you see 30 fish swimming on the graph everywhere, it's like they come up school and they go down for a second, but you're sitting there still looking at them. They're still sitting out here. They're just waiting to get that herring gang back up and go bust on them. It's like, you sit around there and you're like, all right, I'm gone. I'm not gonna fish it no more. Yep. You leave it and you go with your more gut feeling. So that's where, electronics is really good. They're really helpful. They give you a huge advantage, but they can also be a disadvantage too. You got to be able to play the ball game and just play, the fine line in between when you keep using them, when you need to leave it, and just go with your gut. And your gut might have, any second I'm sitting there fishing them herring, and one pot of 4 and 5 pounders come up, and I pop 3 of them, put them in the boat. Yeah. And your day's made. You look like a hero. And you're like, well, if I wouldn't have been looking at my Garmin, I wouldn't have known that them fish were sitting out there on the bottom and known that they would have probably come in there, But anybody can say anything after the fact. But being there, you just got to really trust your instincts and trust your gut and go with your gut.
Yeah. That's pretty much sums up everything because, like I said, it's one of those things where, they can be great and they can hurt you, and you got to walk that fine line. And, you said Santee Cooper's coming up next week or a week after? I don't have the.
It starts the 17th through the 22nd, and but I'll head out. We got practice starting, 3 days before, and head out. I'll be headed out this Saturday to head down there and get everything set up, get ready to rock and roll, and hopefully put some big fish in the boat. We're looking like we're gonna have a full moon, and that's kind of like my little ball game I like to do a lot. I like to look at them. So I'm hoping I'm going to be able to look at them down there and put some big girls in the boat. Super excited about it. Know I'm going to have a bag, hands down. It's going to take a sack every single day. There's no slip-ups. You got to catch big ones.
Full moon, if the weather's right and everything, over 4 days, probably low 80s, 78 to 82?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I would imagine so. Because, it's going to take... It's got to take at least 18 to 20 a day, at least. If not, maybe more than that. It's Santee. There's giants in that place.
Oh, yeah.
And full of giants. Mm-hmm. So...
And it's a big place.
And you got 100 of the best guys in the world out there. Somebody's going to catch them. It ain't just somebody. There's going to be at least 50 of them guys that's going to be on them, whacking on them.
Yeah, it's like when you got a group, like you said, 100 guys, like you take a local tournament. Somebody's always going to catch them. You got, say, 100 guys, local guys. Yep. Somebody's always going to catch them. Well, that somebody is usually, say, the best one in the group. And you take him out of it. You take the next one out of it. The different groups. You put them all in one big group like you got 100 somebodies. And they're going to go off. It's just, they're going to catch fish.
That's it. That's the whole thing about it. It's like, dude, these guys, you come to play, you don't halfway do it. You gotta put it all on the table every single time. That's the same way with practice, dude. I go out when I practice. We get 30 minutes before sunrise and 30 minutes after sunset. That's our time period. That Bassmaster rules. Mm-hmm. That's when we're allowed to be on the water. When it hits that time of 30 minutes before, my boat's in the water. I'm ready to go, and I go fishing. And I don't have no breaks throughout the entire day. I'm out there on the water from daylight to dark because I know how much of a difference maker it makes. You could pull up and spend one extra 5 minutes checking one little place that's got a shell bed or two big stumps on it or something, a hard spot on, this, that, and another, and you find a school of 25 plus pounders on it. And that can happen in a matter of just 2-3 minutes. One little scan over on your down scan, side scan, and you find them. And being out on the water and putting that time in, if you had already said, well, the tournament, it goes from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock. There's no sense in practicing after the tournament hours. I know some people that do that, and it's just like, Not me. I mean, because you never know when you might find the spot.
Yeah.
Now they might not be feeding there, but they're still going to be somewhere in that area, and
Mm-hmm.
you could break them down and figure them out where they're at during the tournament hours.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're at during the hours, and they might be there after hours, but they're still somewhere in the general area. They're not going to go too awful far. So it's a lot of work that goes into it. There ain't no doubt about
Oh yeah,
that.
it's a. I was actually I signed up like within 2 hours of everything opening. I signed up for the opens this year for the Central. I was 2 hours after it opened, and I was number 98 on the waiting list. And I'm like, there's no way for me to get in. Like, the 225 boat field's already full, and I'm 98 behind them. Like,
Yeah.
2 hours after it starts. I'm like, what the heck, man? Like,
Yeah.
a couple years ago they were begging for people, and it's like, then FLW with their Toyota series. Did you see their tournament out of Gunnersville? I think it was Gunnersville a couple weeks ago. They didn't cap the field. They let like 330 boats in a Toyota series FLW. The dude that won it got 80 grand on for a Toyota series. Equivalent to an open, so 35 to 50,000 depending normally. Yeah, first place was 80,000 out of it, and it was like. Then the guy that led it the first 2 days, his first day, and it might not have been Gunnersville, I'd have to look it up, but it was like he came in with a sack that was like 26 or 28 pounds of nothing but smallmouth.
Wow.
And it was
smallmouth. That's kind of unheard of.
Yeah, and that's what everybody's like, what the heck, man? Like, and it might not have been Gunnersville, I could be wrong, but I know it was that area, but yeah, but he had 28 pounds, 26 or 28. I'm like on smallmouth, like, dude,
that's
what?
Big smallies,
dude,
man.
yeah, it's like that's what 4.5. 5 over 5 on average at 20. Yeah, like 5 1/4, 5.5. And it's like that's footballs. I mean,
No.
nothing that you see
produces some big giant smallies. There ain't no doubt about that. But that's like, that's some pushing some big bags.
Yeah, to get and his second day was like a 23. Then his third day he didn't. I think he finished like third or fourth, and the guy that was like third or fourth ended up winning it. But it was like they didn't cap the field. It was like I said, it was like 330 boats. Because they were like. Everybody kept signing up, so they're like, we're going to run it, and they were able to talk them, like they did their other permits to allow it because they usually cap theirs at like 225 or something like that, and it's like, but yeah, it was a 3-day Toyota series, and I was like, and it's like you look back a couple years ago, and bass fishing, I think college, the college fishing and the high school teams and everything it's helped a lot because you get more recognition into it, and like you're seeing way more people get into it than you were 2 or 3 years ago, because it's like when you fish the opens in 2020, y'all probably it wasn't a full field in every one of them. 2018 I fished a few as a co-angler, and not only were we they were short co-anglers, they didn't even have full fill on the boater side, and it's like now you gotta wait, and I think the Centrals had they said the Centrals had over 450 boaters sign up.
That's insane.
Yeah, and but I mean they're fishing Ross Barnett. Got a history of it, produces some good fish, and like I was excited because it's 3 hours from where I live at. Yeah. They're fishing Sam Rayburn. It's 3.5 hours from where I live at. Then they're fishing Red River, North Louisiana. My wife's family has a place up there, so 15 minutes. So I was like, it's home for me, all three. And like I said, I didn't get in. And I was like, well, maybe next time. And I laughed about it, but it's like that many people. Like every division, though, they said the Northerns, the Centrals, and the Southerns had more than the full field sign up in the bass. So it's like the sport's come a long ways in the last few years. And it's like Fox picking up some of the stuff. Wasn't it Fox picked up airing some of the tournaments, I believe? Yep. That has helped a lot. And at the same time, though, it's hurt a lot. And this is, maybe you can correct me on this if I'm wrong. To me, it's hurt a lot because you got guys that are starting to fish the opens that don't have the dream that we were just talking about, from the time they were a little kid of being in the Classic. They want that YouTube fame and that fame of being there, like, we're going to put it in, like, they're trying, you understand what I'm trying to say? And and it's like, they're not there for, I get their reasons. I understand their reasons, but they're not there for the reasons that we would have, especially, like, your reason was at my...
Reasons.
Do what?
It's the dream come true reason.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, it's something that you've been dreaming about I mean, for me to be here, be able to fish the elites, man, I've dreamed about that. When teachers ask you in school, what do you want to be when you grow up? I tell them I want to be a professional fisherman. Like that's what I told them growing up. That's my exact words every single time I got asked that. It's like, dude, I want to be a professional fisherman. I want to go do it. I want to grind and I want to work for it. And even like the opens, like we fished them, and the competition that year was insanely tough. Christy and all them boys.
Hackney, Christy, it was
Martin.
And
we go, and I was fortunate enough. I had my dad travel with me during the opens, and he was able to go out there. We broke down water. We fished really good together. We're really efficient, and we always you see team tournaments, and this is one thing that it gets me insane. I don't understand it. Is like for me, I can remember if we ever fished a team tournament, it'd be me and my dad's front boat. Like there's no hey,
there's no front and back. Yeah.
Back boat, and you cast from the back of the boat, and we'll see what we can do today. It's no, we're up there at the front. We're helping each other out. We're breaking it down. Casting underhand. I'm casting underhand. Whichever side we're on. And it's just like it makes a difference. It truly makes a huge difference, and it's just like people don't realize that. People will go and they'll fish a team tournament, and they're putting themselves at a disadvantage.
You're handicapping yourself because you're fishing against each other instead of with each other, and it's like
exactly. And it's just like, man, I don't see how people do it. I don't see how people fish from the back of the boat in a team tournament, because I would just be like, man, we're just wasting our time. We got to get up here. Let's do it together. It's a team thing. This is a team. We're gonna, if we do good, we're gonna help each other out in this. And it's just.
Go ahead, sorry.
I don't understand how people can think of that. It's like, hey, man, I gotta have my front of the boat. Like, you get back there and just let me do my thing up here. And sometimes it works out. It works good for people that do that. But it's just like, how much better would you have done if you would have had both of you at the front making the perfect cast and helping each other at the same time?
I'm laughing because the club I fished in last year, we ended up fishing 2 team tournaments a year, and I'm like, okay, cool. I was in second in points. The guy that was in first, it's our 4th tournament of the year. I'd been like 3rd, 2nd, and 1st, and he had 1st, and 2nd. So we were right there together in points. We draw out as the team. And I'm like, and I asked the rest of the club, I'm like, y'all are okay with this? I was like, because I kind of contested. I don't want to fish with the number 1 guy, and I don't think he would want to fish. I said, I don't want to fish because I want the chance of moving up on him, not us going up together. Yeah. I said, but y'all do realize, like, if we win this one, it's really going to, mess y'all over. Because we're 20, 30 points ahead of 3rd place. I was like, we win this one, y'all going to have to, it's going to hurt y'all to get there. So we go fish, and he's like, oh, we're going to take my boat. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. I'm like you, figured, it's a team tournament. This dude, backing a boat to me all day, and I'm his partner. And I'm like, so I'm like, what the hell, man? And it was like, we ended up 3rd place for the team, and I'm like, so they actually caught up with us a little bit. And him and I jockeyed back and forth all year for the top 2 spots, but it was like, first, we should have fished together and made that gap huge. But it was like, I'm like, I don't understand. Is like he was in his mind, like he was hurting me, and I'm like, but you're hurting yourself to hurt me. Like it.
He was like, you're not helping us out at all.
No, you killed us both. You made it. You made it where the guys in 3rd and 4th and 5th, because had a shot. I was like, we could have put this one away early, and fought all year. It was like, and it was like, so then we had to because it was like the guys the guy that won it 3rd, the guy that was in 3rd in points, they won it. Well, we went and we were in 3rd, so they gained 10 points on us through that one tournament. I'm like, dude, all we had to do was I'm like, he had me he's fishing a point, right? And I'm just like, I'm out here in the middle just hanging out, making a deep cast, dragging a Carolina rig because I'm like,
what else?
And it's like, I'm laughing that, I'm laughing about it now. I wasn't that day. I was just I was livid because it was like, my wife was texting me and she's like, how's it going? I'm like, man, about to throw him out of his own boat. This makes no sense to me. I'd have been better off just to I don't want to partner and fish by myself. And it was like, we're laughing, but it's like, people do that, and it's like, you can still be partners fishing the front of the boat like you saw with your dad, and be competitive with each other because that brings out more in you.
It does.
And it's like
when me and Dev's out fishing together, it's always, well, I'm kicking your butt today. I've caught 10 and you caught 9. And it's like, well, bring it on, son. I'm gonna catch 10 more. It's like, it's always been that way. But just the competition wise, it makes you strive to do better. It makes you, want to do better. And for example, another thing, growing up fishing, like down here at these events. And here's something this is another thing that gets me. They'll have these tournaments where they say, no pros allowed, no pros. No pros. We don't want no pros in the tournament. We're going to make this even. No pros fishing it. Growing up fishing, I grew up fishing against Hank Cherry, Shane Lineberger, Shane LeHue. I can name off probably 10 guys. It's like Elite Series pros that I've fished growing up ever since I was a little bitty boy. Growing up fishing with my dad, me and we've been fishing against each other, and we would win fishing against some guys. But when you do win,
it's bigger to you.
It makes it just feel so much better, and it makes you better as a fisherman. You go to these tournaments and they're like, well, we don't want no pros in here. It's like, all right, well, suit yourself. We'll do whatever. But you go out there and you win against somebody that's fishing with a Zebco 33. How much did you really win? What was in it? It's like, and you're not going to get no better. No. It ain't going to make you strive to do better. It's like you got to make it where it's a competition to do better every single time on the water, because it's going to make you a better fisherman at yourself and within yourself. You got more confidence fishing. If I go out there and I fish against Cherry and Shane and all them boys on the weekend, and I go out and I fish the League Series tournament, I look over and I see Cherry and Shane and all them other boys. What's the difference in it? It ain't no difference in it.
You're not starstruck. You're not like, oh my God, they're so much better than me. And it's like, I fished ABA years back, and we had the South Louisiana division, which we don't have anymore. Daryl fished it. Cliff was on it. Let's see, it was a couple others. Then it's like Derek was in there at one point. I mean, it was a bunch of guys, and you're looking at them and like you could see they were special. Like you knew they were gonna, and it was like, you look at it and it's like it was probably 7 or 8 guys that some are on FLW, some are on the elites, and like I said, and you look at it and it's like you knew those, say 5 to 7 guys. All right, they're gonna be up there in the top because you knew it. And it's like now where it's like not that you're like, oh man, I'm not as good as them, I'm not gonna place up there, but how close can I get with those guys? That gives you that, like how good they are. Can I compete with them? And it's like,
you got to grind as hard and work what they're working. And if you work as hard as how they're working, usually it'll pay off for you if you work just as hard. But if you got halfway do it and you're like, well, we ain't got no competition today, we'll just mess around. We'll catch us 5 big ones, yada, yada, yada. You ain't going to catch them. I mean, it just ain't. You got to put the work in, and that's the whole difference in it. And so, like you pull up to the ramp and you look out there, you see Thrift, Matt Airy, and all these different guys. And, it's like, not even just like a big, 100-boat tournament. We'll have a 20-boat Wildcat Monday night fish-off derby, and 10 of the guys are pros that show up to the ramp. And it's like, dude, all right, we're not halfway doing it tonight. We're going to have to catch a bag, because if we don't, one of them 10 guys are going to jack them, and the other 10 guys that fish with us, they're just as good as the guys that's pros because they grew up fishing against the pros their whole life.
Right. It's like you look and you got the Lee brothers fishing a little Monday night team tournament together or whatever. You're like, really? Like, it's like, and it's like, how good they are. And it's like, yes, this is like, you want that competition. It's like talking about, my little boys are 9 and 7 and like we'll fish I take them a lot to when we're in North Louisiana to the family place up there because it's got 5 ponds on it and everything, and like we've caught some my 9-year-old's personal best out of the ponds like right at 7 pounds, and and when he hooked it, he's on like a Zebco 202, and he's like, Daddy, I need some help, and I'm like, just back up, and he starts backing up, and I realize how big the fish was. I'm like, oh crap, so I run there and I help him, and it's like I've caught 5 to 6 or 8 plus out of the ponds. Like, we got some good fish in them. But, like, I'll laugh at my little boys. We were up there last weekend before, whatever. And weekend before, because I was here at the house watching the Classic, so it was weekend before. We go out there to go fishing. Like I said, they're 9 and 7. They're like, hey, what you want to bet on the first fish? And I'm laughing at them two, like they're talking to each other. And he's like, this one's like, I go $1. And I'm like, really? Y'all gonna bet? Like? And I've laughed at them two, like talking. And they was like, all right. And the youngest one's like, I'm down. Then he's like, how about who catches the most? All right. Well, all right. Whoever's got the biggest. I'm like, so y'all got like 3 side bets going on over here. Like, I'm like, who's paying the money? Well, you are, Dad. I'm like, how did I get, like, it was like.
Oh, that's good stuff.
But
man.
yeah, they are in it, but it's like, you get one out there by himself, he'll kind of, like you said, he's like, he's half, he's goofing off. You get them both out there.
And it's a competition.
It's competition. And they're going to push each other. And I'm like.
They're going to push each other to do better, to catch more fish, to catch the biggest fish. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, whoever won it, this, that, and another, it's an awesome deal. You know, they won it. They beat their brother doing it, but it's going to make the other brother
push harder next time.
Getting harder to do good and do better than his brother next time. And that's it's like you can't just go out there just halfway doing it, halfway wanting to have at it. If you want to do it and be at the top and stay at the top and not get jealous and mad and get mad about these guys coming down here and beating your butt, it's like, well, put the time in, put the effort in, and work. Don't sit there and get on social media and complain. Go back and look at what you did wrong that day and try and figure out what you're doing wrong and figure it out. And that's the whole difference maker in it.
What you just said, you summed up life in general. Stay off of social media complaining about it. Figure out what you're doing wrong.
Exactly.
And fix it.
And just solve the problem, solve the issue there. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about doing it. Yeah. Go and solve your issues, solve your problems, and move forward in life, because life moves on. You know, and you gotta keep going with the flow, moving with the flow,
or get left behind.
Exactly. If it's the Lord's will, it's the Lord's will, and He'll, it is what it is.
When it's His time, it's gonna, it's nothing you can do can stop it from happening on His time. Like, the saying, like, and it's like, you can hinder it and slow them down, but it's still gonna happen. And it's like you can. And it's like talking like and I'm getting at that because it's like you get guys that everything to them's going wrong in that tournament, and they come in at the end of the day and they won it because it was their time, and they could or they could do no wrong. You get one like
and it is that way, man. It's kind of crazy. Like when you do get a win, it's just like everything just goes perfect that day. And you can still lose fish and miss fish, and you're thinking you're doing bad, but all of a sudden you stumble in, you pop 2 big 4-pounders back to back, and you're just like, you're coming in there looking like a hero. But a lot of times, I've had a lot of tournaments that all the way up until, check-ins at 3 o'clock, you ain't got like a limit in the boat, and end up winning the tournament in the last hour of the day. And it's because you don't stop. You can't let your body stop. You can't let your mind get psyched out of it. That's one of the biggest factors in fishing, is just having confidence the entire time and not letting your mind throw you off the path of what you do. And you got to focus on what you're doing. It's like grind. You never know what might happen. They can come up schooling out of nowhere, and you catch 3, 4, 5 piggins and 5 casts, and your whole day's made. Yep. And you look like going in instead of getting your head down, being in the slumps because you ain't called them. It's 12 o'clock. You ain't called them, and you're already giving up. You can't do that. Yes. You got to be grinding the whole time. And sometimes you grind and you work hard and you fish hard and you come in at the end of the day and you get your butt kicked. But that's just part of it. It's fishing. It ain't called, it ain't catching.
It ain't catching. It's fishing. And it's like, or like you're just whacking them like, pow, and then your mind's like, man, if I'm catching them like this, everybody's catching them like this. Everybody's got it. Then, that day happens and you get in and like nobody else was catching them like that, and you're like, wait,
okay,
what just happened? It's like, what did I do?
The lunch money, boys.
Yeah, it's like wait, what did I do different than y'all? Like, what was y'all doing? Because like, what was y'all doing wrong? Because I mean, like, y'all had to be messing up. They were biting. It was like, it's those days, or like, like you said, that 11, 12 o'clock. It's like, a while back fishing a little local when it was noon, I think, and our weigh in was 6 to 2, and it was like noon. I didn't have to keep her in the boat. I've caught like three or four dinks. I'm like, sat down a minute. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? So I was like, okay, switched complete styles. Like I was throwing everything. So I switched back from like I had a couple short strikes on like like a creature style bait. It's like so I switched to like just a straight. It was actually a Zoom. The new trick worm like the Z3 and the bold bluegill. Switched to that, and the next 8 casts I had a limit.
Yeah,
and I'm like, correct. In the same, and I was fishing back down the same area that I had just went through.
Yeah,
and was like, practice fishing at Rayburn a while back. Went through an area, throwing a bait, went through, didn't catch anything, and I'm just pre-fishing. Coming back out, same bait, different color. Caught 3 fish. Just went through there. And I'm like, what made the difference? Like, was it, then it's like, was it the color or was it the angle? So you got to step back and look at that. And it's like, if I was going north to south and I wasn't catching a fish, and it was, then I switched and go south to north, and I switched baits,
And is it your sunshine?
Mm-hmm.
What's the position of the sun? What's the clouds doing right now? Is it raining? Like what? There's a ton of factors that
there's so many variables.
Mind open the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep it open and be like, well, I went over here and I fished these 3 points, and they're not on points. They're just not on that stuff. I'm gonna keep running other stuff. Well, maybe they're just not on them 3 little points you just fished. They could be on points, and you don't know that. And fish, and it's really hard to understand them because they're always moving, they're always getting around and doing different stuff, but they always go off of different weather conditions, and that's where it all comes back to your conditions of that what you're having. Angles are huge in fishing. Angles are massive in fishing because sometimes, especially anytime you're ever fishing a current situation, if you're not bringing your bait natural with the flow of the current, you're probably not going to catch fish.
Yeah.
You might catch some.
You might catch one. Something's wrong with him. He
Yeah, exactly. You find a sick one every now and then. But when you start getting it going, and here's the saying: it's like one's luck, 2's maybe, 3's a pattern. All right, and you're running that pattern, but you got that bait. If you're fishing any type of current, and it's like, all right, well, this current break right here, I throw up and I let my worm drift back in there nice and slow, and it goes back in there. Boom, you get a bite. You go around, you go to the next one, you run across the lake. Well, the current's going opposite direction or something, and you go and you throw, and you're like, you bring your bait back through the current break, and you're like, man, why wasn't you in that current break? Like, why wasn't you there?
Mm-hmm.
And did you just think about the fact that you just had to take it, drift in there nice and slow, and go natural? And it's like a lot of times people don't realize that. People don't realize how much of a difference it makes having your bait flow with the natural current flow. And all the way down to like your bait selections. Say you're throwing a 3/4 ounce jig out on Kentucky Lake or something like that, and you're seeing them on your side. You side scanned them. You've seen them out there. It's a school of 100 of them, and you're sitting there fishing for them, and you're like, I know, I'm going through fish. You can feel them.
Yeah, it's bouncing off of it. Like
you're dragging your bait, you're feeling it, and you're like, they're there. I like, what do I got to do different to make them bite? And it's like, I'll switch up. All right, let's throw a 1/2 ounce hammerhead jig. And, that hammerhead has got a rattle inside the head. Something that's different that nobody else is throwing. You throw it out there, and instead of just dragging it, you're going out through there and you shake it. Rattle, rattle, rattle. Give it a hop. Make them react.
Mm-hmm.
Something different. Something that they haven't seen all the time. And, maybe even going down smaller than that. Going down to like a 3/8 or a 1/4 ounce jig. Something really light, super light. But when you throw it out there and the current picks it up and it's dragging down through there, it's going and it's flowing natural across the bottom. Mm-hmm. It looks like an actual crawfish or a bait fish that's getting blown down into them. It's not sitting there and getting drugged and stop, drug and stop, drug and stop, because the bait don't do that on like a river ledge. It don't just go down through there and it drag it and you just stop it and you let it lay there. It's constantly flowing. That current's got everything flowing and moving, and you got to make your bait do the exact same thing as that, the movement of the water. I've seen that a lot of times, like at like the Potomac and stuff. You're fishing tidal waters. We were up there, and I've seen a difference between a 3/16 ounce shaky head and a 1/4 ounce shaky head make the difference in catching 50 or 60 fish. Like legit, like just that little bitty weight difference. But it's the weight difference of you're sitting there fishing where this current's draining out, and you're still up there and you're dragging it. Well, it's dragging. It's not flowing naturally.
It's not natural.
And you throw that natural one, and you'll just start getting bit. And there's a lot of factors that go into fishing, and you can't let yourself get spun out, by the little things. You missed a big in here, missed a big in there. What did I do wrong? Like, what do I need to go do different? And it's just a matter of zoning in, focusing on what's going on right now at this time. What's our weather conditions? What's going on? What do I need to do? Is there current flowing now through there? Is there, is it, the wind blowing bait fish into an area? Is there, no wind on an area and the water's heating up faster in the area where there's no wind? And like, you got to put all them factors into it. And really, it's a science. It really is. Catching fish is a science. Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it.
You keep a journal?
Yeah, I don't, but I hopefully I got it right here in this little.
You hope you're downloading it there?
I don't a lot of what I remember from school and college, but I did remember a little bait technique or two.
yeah. Didn't learn. Might not learn what I was supposed to learn, but I can tell you how to. Like, I was there. What was it? You were there. You were there for one reason. You said you was gonna be a professional fisherman, so that.
That's right. Right. And I mean, I went through, and I'm not saying I'm not smart by no means.
No, I'm messing with you.
0.3 GPA, and I worked hard. There was days that I would go out there, and I spent from as soon as I got out of class, I'm headed to the lake, and I'm going out there fishing on Kentucky Lake and just whacking on catching fish. But when I got off the water, I still knew what I had to do in order for me to stay and be able to do what I'm doing. I'd sit down and I'd do my schoolwork, and I'd get my work done that I need to get done. Like, it's not a matter of putting everything off, but if you have an opportunity to go and get out there and work, and it's like, it's pouring down rain, who cares? Go out there. Go do it. I wear my buck and bass rain suit. Never have an issue with it. When I'm out there on the water, I never get wet, period. So if it's raining, it's nasty, it's just terrible conditions, I don't care. I'm going. I'm not going to sit at the dang hotel and wait for it to blow off. I'm out on the water, and I'm working my butt off and putting the time in. But, when it comes back off time, where time is that I'm not going to be able to on the water, do your other work. Get everything else done that you need to do in order to make sure that you get back out there and you're going to get to go out and go fishing another day. And, it's a lot of work and a lot of stuff that goes into it, but you just got to really play it smart and play it by ear. But if you have an opportunity to get to the water, say it's even for an hour, that hour of fishing, you can learn so much in just that hour of fishing. It's incredible. But you just got to keep an open mind and keep knowledge of what, if you caught a fish on one certain color and it's a big one, but it has it choked, and, you're back in a different lake, a whole different section of the country. Remember that big one that you had and it had it choked? What was the reason? You think it was that color? Try it out. Boom, it works. And you're like, all right. It's like, I might have something going here. And, a lot of times you'll get liars in fishing. You'll get a fish that'll just, you'll be going down through there and you're like, oh man, well, I think they're going to be eating a spinnerbait. And you throw it up through there and you catch a big one on its second cast. And you're like, oh, this is the whole deal, man. This is what you got to do. You're like, and you run it and you keep running that spinnerbait and you run it for 3 hours and you never get
nothing.
And you're just like, dude, I thought that was the deal. But that's where it comes back to that 3-fish factor. I use this 3-fish factor a ton with my fishing. It's, 1's luck, 2's maybe, and 3 is, you got a pattern. You got something figured out. And especially, you also got to pay into attention, too, as well as, like, the healthiness of fish.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going along down through there, going down the bank, and you catch just a skinny little random do-nothing fish. It's like, all right, was this fish really here for a reason? Because there's fish are always at a place for a reason. There's a reason why they're there. Was he there for a reason, or was he sick and he's like, not feeling good, dying, or something weird like that, and you just got lucky and you caught him? But then you start going and you start running more patterns, running that same stuff, and you catch like 2 more fat fish off of it, and you're like, all right, there's a reason why these fish are here. They're feeding for a reason. And that's the whole thing with bass fishing. There's so much that goes into it. There's a ton that goes into it. But the only thing a fish needs, you got to have oxygen. You got to have usually clean water. Dirty water, sometimes they'll get in it. But as long as it has good oxygen, it don't matter. Good oxygen, cleanest water, bait fish or some type of food source. You have those 3 things, usually you'll be able to get around and catch some fish. But without having those, just keeping that in your mind, like even when you're just going fishing and you just see like, oh, well, there was a little bait hit out there. Well, there was some bait they hit out there. There's bait in that area.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in the area and you just see there's nothing popping, there's no bait activity, you just gotta go with your gut and be like, dude, I'm not where the fish are at. Like, we gotta go find some food, because that's what them fish. That's all they care about. They care about eating. I mean, they're just like me, you and me, man. When you get hungry, you gotta eat.
Well, yeah, it like you can go with fishing or deer hunting on it. The what is it, like your chart where it tells you your best feeding times, your minor feeding times. There was a lot of scientific work that went into that, and it's pretty accurate. I mean, and I know back in the 80s, Bass did a lot of extensive work with it. Early 80s, maybe mid 80s, where they would have their guys, when they came in, fill out a chart. When did you catch this fish? Like what? And then they'd go to looking at, well, there was a time frame. Yeah, and and it's the same thing with deer hunting. It's like I laugh because I'll look at that chart and it's like, if major feeding times at 3 a.m., you got a good chance of catching one. If you're hunting over beds, then you're gonna catch them slipping back to his bed. Yeah. But if you're hunting over a food source, you're wasting your time being out there, because he's already ate and went back to bed.
He's already done.
He's done. And it's like the fish, if it's if they're like, it's the same concept of it, because say you got, like you said, 5 points you're fishing. You hit the first one at 6 o'clock and there's nothing there. Then 7 o'clock you hit another one, 8 o'clock. Well, you rotate between those 5 on an 8-hour day. You're going to catch fish at 1 or 2 of them through that 8-hour day, because you're going to catch them when they're fired up, eating and moving and doing. And that's the thing where, I guess the average guy, he's going to hit one spot because he has a history with it, and he's going to stay with it. And you might catch 1 or 2. But it's like, you could take an area that, like you said, you fish Kentucky Lake a lot. There's probably, I'm just going to guess and say, you got 20, 25 favorite spots that that they're going to produce. You're going to hit those 20 to 25 spots first. You're going to go through them. You're going to spend a few minutes each one. You're probably going to roll back through them. And it's no particular order. Like, just because you want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're not going to turn around and go back to number 1. You're going to bounce off of them. But eventually, out of those 20 spots you hit, you're going to pick up your limit of fish, because they're going to turn on at one or the other. You're going to catch them right.
And it's like, you can figure out your pattern. You might have some really good places. You got really good places, but maybe you go and you hit 5 places that's really good, and then you go, and in the 5 places, they're all like a little different, and you catch off of the one of the 5 places. Mm-hmm. Well, what made that place different? You figure out what made it different. Study everything around you, your environment, everything, and maybe let's go fish another 10 more of these places that I know is really good. Let's go fish another place that sets up just like where I just caught that fish at, and that's where you get your pattern at. You get your pattern off of learning what made that place good, and it's different than every other one. Why they're there? What's the reason for them there? Let's run it and run that pattern of why the fish are there, and usually you'll have a lot more success because you're running off of the pattern.
Yeah, and then there's usually like a pattern within a pattern that you're going to figure out, and it's like, well, I don't want to rush you, and I don't know how much time you got, but I'm gonna ask you a few questions, and we'll go, and because like I said, it's what's your best advice to give somebody that wants to do what you're doing?
keep fishing and putting time in on the water. If you don't put time in on the water, you're not going to get better and you're not going to learn. Just got to keep your head up. Don't let it get down. You get get in the slumps about it. It does you no good. I just lost a big 6-pounder in the Bassmaster Classic. That hurts. It hurts bad. But hey, guess what? I got another one coming up at Santee, and I'm hoping I'm going to pick that big fish that I missed down there and put it in my bag and add 4 more big ones with it. And just keep a positive mental attitude the whole time. You don't want to get down in the slumps and get pissed off, this, that, and the other about it. Stay positive. You get to get out there and be in the Lord's creation. You get to be in the great outdoors. You get to be out there experiencing, something magical, and just take that to consideration. Be thankful that you get to be out there fishing, and put the time in, put the work in, and work your butt off, and it'll pay off in the long run.
All right. Favorite, like, it's your go-to bait. What you gonna?
Go-to bait, no doubt, is 2 of them. A queen tackle flipping jig, 3/8 ounce cream pumpkin green with a Zoom creepy crawler trailer or Zoom speed crawl, and a queen tackle half-ounce switch-bladed jig with a Z-Crawl Junior or a speed crawl. And I like them in green pumpkin green or shell cracker. One of the 2 colors in them, and that's my go-to. I've used it all through college, all through the opens and on the elites. That's my go-to. I use that. I put it on a 7-1 for my flipping jig, medium heavy DCVR rods, Jinko DCVR rods, super lightweight rod. It's extremely light. With that tungsten, you're dragging it through. I got it on Strike King Contra line, and with that fluorocarbon line, super sensitive, super light rod, super sensitive rod, and as soon as he bites it, I know when he bites it. There's no question about it. The line's too sensitive, the rod's too sensitive. Boom, he hits it, I know. And even if he comes up to it and blows it, smells it, I can feel that. I can feel the difference in that.
That's what I was going to say.
I'll put it on there and match it with a Lew's high-speed SPF, like an 8:5-to-1 gear ratio. One of the things that people always think about, they're like, oh, man, well, you got to have a 6:4-to-1 for your spinner baits, and you got to have a 5:1 gear ratio for your crankbait, and you might want an 8 gear ratio to flip with. If you look at all my rods, I promise you, I got all of those high-speed reels on every single one of my rods. There's not a single rod that I have nothing less. The smallest speed I got is a 7.5. That's it, and I have like 3 of them. The rest of them all are 8+. But the thing is, you got to tell yourself,
slow down.
What about your, the crankbait? It's like, all right, just turn the handle a little slower,
Yep.
But you can't gain if you don't have it. If you got a 5 gear ratio and you're just sitting there trying to catch up to him and he comes off, you're like, oh, dude, what happened? And it's like, well, you didn't get the slack out of it, and you had it where it wasn't you couldn't get it in the boat because you didn't have enough reel to wind it on in and get it. And it's like, you got to have, for me, I'm always moving fast. With that combo, Jinko rod, 7 or high speed LFS, Lew's speed, high speed. Excuse me, I can't hardly talk. With a high speed reel and some Contra fluorocarbon, that's my go-to. Put that queen tackle flipping jig. I can take it and I can put it underneath any jig, any dock, any limb, anywhere. It's perfect skipping rod. That 7.1 medium heavy is perfect for skipping a jig. I can skip it 30 yards up underneath the dock. It feels like I ain't lying. Like it'll just go and it just keep going and man, like with them baits in my hand, I'm confident. It ain't a matter of I go out there and I'm like sitting there telling myself, well, I don't know if this color's really that good or not. Like, should I change my color? No, I'm not doing that. I know I got good baits on. The baits that I use are good. I catch fish on them. So it ain't a matter of not doubting your baits. It's a matter of going out there and finding the fish and learning what they're doing and figuring out the pattern, what's going on. Then you keep that in your mind the whole time. It's like, I got the good baits. I have the baits that when he bites it, I'm going to catch him on it. Our jigs, we got coffee scent on all our jigs. So when he hits it, it's in his crushers, and it's like, I don't ever worry about that. I don't ever worry about my certain colors or anything because I got, I keep it simple. I keep a couple, a handful of colors that's dark, muddier water, and clearer water. I got some lighter colors, and that's it. I know they're going to catch fish if I get around them. So now it's a matter of me going out there and learning what the fish are doing in that time and learning how to catch the fish on their patterns and where they're at and finding the location of the fish.
You brought up a point a while ago, and like we could go for a long time on that about what you said about the line, the rod, matching your gear to each other. That's another big thing. Like if you don't match it, it'll cost you fish. And you alluded to that with the 5-to-1 on the crankbait. I think I throw 7-3-1 or something like that on almost everything I throw, and I don't think I have anything slower than that. And it's like my crankbait. I'll have to remind myself a lot of times, like because I'll be used to throwing something, I'll throw that crankbait, and I'll go to crank it. I'm like, whoa,
slow down a little bit.
Slow down. I swap, and it's like, that's the biggest thing. I'll have to remind myself of that. But I know I've got the speed to catch up. It's like,
Correct.
It's like you take those, you got a cousin, he throws spinning gear all the time, and I chuckle at him because like fish is running, and he's on that little spinning reel, and I'm like,
yeah.
you want me to troll up to him? What you want me to do, bud? Like we gonna chase him? Like, because he's running, he can't get caught up to turn him or whatever, and it's like when he gets caught up, I'm like, I could have done that fish in a boat and boat flip, like it's like, it's like, and I'm not, spinning gear has its place, like that because it's everything has its place, and it's like,
correct.
But everything, if you match stuff up, you're gonna make your production level go up, and
the whole key in fishing is being very productive
with the time and material.
Percentage game is you take out all the extra time, the extra time that your bait's not in the water, and you add that in, and you cancel all the you cancel all that out, and you focus on your percentage of doing better, what's going to make me do better and be more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Being efficient in water is everything. And for me, example, I run the new Gambler G22. That boat I'm running, I can run 80 miles an hour down the lake. That's a big difference between you're going, say, all right, well, hey, we got to make an hour run, and you're running 60 miles an hour, I'm running 80 miles an hour. That's an extra 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That's there and back. That's 40 minutes.
Yeah.
40 minutes in run time out of just running that different boat, and it gives me an advantage. It gives me a step ahead. And being an R level, you got to have advantages. That's why I use my queen tackle with the tungsten, man. It gives me an edge. I know for a fact that tungsten makes a difference, and I use it religiously, and I use that in my fishing platform where I'm fishing at. Like, I know mentally I got an advantage over somebody, even if they pulled in front of me and fished down through there. I know I can take that switchblade and go right behind them. I can catch them because it's something different. And just having that difference is huge and a huge player in the fishing industry, especially nowadays, because a lot of people know how to do it. We have social media. There's so much. I mean, people.
Hey,
they know, how to go do it. But having something that gives you the little difference, gives you a little bit of an edge, is sometimes the difference maker in winning the tournament and not winning the tournament.
Well, yeah, it's like you used to have, like, as the pros, they did stuff a little different than what everybody else did, and it was kept kind of in-house. Well, now with so much social media, it's like, what was it? A few years back, everybody with a buzzbait. Now, a few years back, started ripping the skirts off and putting something on, running them that way. Well, everybody does it now, but several years, it's been around for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But not everybody knew it, and now it's everywhere. You go to Academy and buy a Strike King. What is it? Strike.
Put them on it.
Yeah, it comes with them on it, and it's like, used to, we'd buy us one, tear it off, throw it, then hook it up. It's like,
yeah,
but
now it's like, all right, well, I think everybody's doing that. So
I'm gonna go back to the original
and do something different.
Yeah,
and sometimes that makes a difference. Sometimes going back to the old school ways.
Mm-hmm.
I fish a lot of old school ways. My grandpa taught me so much, man. I mean, and I got a Zoom trick worm in my hand. I've got confidence. I'm probably gonna catch him if he's up there. And simplest thing ever. But I got so much confidence in it because it's very simple, but it's something that fish will always usually eat.
Your grandfather may have fished with him, the old do-nothing worm.
I'm sure he probably did.
It literally, and that's what it was called, a do-nothing worm, and it come pre-rigged with like 2 hooks in it.
The 2 hooks in
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
It's called a do-nothing.
Rope out the top of it?
Yeah, and the guy that invented it, sometime in the 80s or whatever, or mainly made it famous, like, talking about it, he's like, you just do nothing. He's like, and it's like, when you feel it spongy, that's a fish. It was like, it was like, and it's like, if you look, that's coming, that was back in the day, that was a big, like, like I said, your grandfather probably fished it some. Now people are doing it again. But it's like, most of the stuff you see is repetitive cycle. It's like, man, they were doing that 20 years ago. But it's a lot of the younger crowd. I'm 37, you're 26, 7?
25.
25, okay. So, 12-year difference in us. There's stuff that's, you're seeing now that, I've seen, and it's just
coming back around.
It's coming back around.
And it's all a big rotation, but sometimes being in that rotation, being in there with it, but having something that makes you stick out of the rotation and give them something a little different in the rotation, it'll make a big difference in catching a lot.
Like with the clickbait, the chatterbait, that was being a little different. Is big in that world because it's like I fished with a boy in one of the opens 2018. I was a co-angler and we was fishing, I think, Barnett. He was throwing chatterbait and like the reeds and weeds and everything in the grass. It was different. I didn't have a chatterbait, I'm like, we're in a community hole. There's 20 boats around us. This dude's culling fish. Nobody else is catching anything. I'm in the back of the boat. Like, I'm throwing everything I've got. I'm trying to be completely different than him. Bite here or there. He's just murdering them. Everybody around's looking like, what is he? And and it was like it's like I think he after day 2 he was in like the top 3 or 4 because of that day. He had a just great day. But it was like, I said, what possessed you to throw that where it's at? Oh, well, we tried it last week at home just playing around, and it killed them down in the basin, South Louisiana. And I'm like, he's like, so I tried it here. He's like, the conditions were the same, crappy weather. And I'm like, it worked. And that's the biggest thing. Like you said, that memory. Memory's good or bad. Like, make sure, remember everything, whether it's good or bad. Remember it. But, all right, like you said, I'm going to ask a quick question. Growing up, like, who's your favorite fisherman out of the.
That's a hard one. Always, whenever I was growing up, KVD was, like, dominating.
Yeah.
Like, KVD was a huge one that I always looked up to.
Yeah.
He's a super fast fisherman, always grind. But, like, another one that I've always looked up to a lot is Brian Thrift.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
Thrift, he's a hometown hero for me. I grew up fishing against him and still watched him go out through there and just dominate and do really good. And he's a super fast fisherman, super high-paced fisherman, and it's my kind of setup. I like covering a lot of water. I like, spending my time, and it goes back to that percentage thing. Maybe I'm covering a lot more water, but I'm putting my bait in a higher percentage place to where I can get more bites and cover. The more water I cover, the more likelihood of getting my bait in another high percentage area where I can get more bites. And then it's like, I loved watching him grow up as a child. It's been awesome. And even get to go back again, like, this weekend, I get to go down there and, I'd probably get to fish against him. If he's down there at the ramp, he's not running around doing something else, fishing a different tournament somewhere. We get together. It's just a good competition.
Yeah.
It's really
for this year's schedule for the Open, Elite Circuit, what's your place you're looking forward to the most?
I'm looking forward to Santee because the weather's set up in that. And I'm looking forward to Chickamauga, that April 7th in that range.
Yeah, it ought to be about.
It ought to be looking at. So I'm looking really forward to them tournaments. I'm actually kind of excited about going back to the St. Lawrence because, last year I should have won Rookie of the Year. I was right there, like, leading it, going, and I just crapped the bed on the last tournament. Yeah. And that was and I don't know if it was just the pressure that got to me. I have no clue. Like, I really thought I was going to catch some fish, but I just didn't do enough, and I want to redeem myself on the St. Lawrence because I've been up there and I've whacked them before. And it's like, man, I know how to catch these fish. It's like I want to go back and redeem myself on that river.
The one in North Dakota? That ought to be different.
It is going to be very different. It's going to be a long drive too.
I think was it the last time I was up there, was it Brandon that won it?
Yeah, I remember Fritz. Fritz was up there with him, and I don't remember exactly who won it, but it's different fishery. There ain't no doubt about that. It's complete. I've been watching all the recaps of it on Bassmasters and everything else, and just trying to get as much knowledge as I can on it. But it's like I'm just gonna have to go up there, go with my gut, and just go fishing, and just try and figure out the fish as it comes. So.
Lake Fark's gonna be one of those. Like, I think it's gonna be hot. You know.
It probably will be. It's the exact same time that we were there last year, and I was catching them off the bed and had some decent bags off the bed. But, like, that place just has so many big fish in it, and there's so many different things that you can be doing down there. So it's going to be like I'm not sure how it's going to be. I mean, I'm gonna try and go get on a shad spawn bite maybe early and try and get a couple of those real big ones, and maybe back off and go catch, like, the 4 and 5 pound bucks. But that's what's wild about that place.
Yeah, 4 and 5 pound bucks.
Fish, like, the bucks that you catch off the bed, like, you're like, oh, that's just a buck. Well, that's a 5 pound buck. You know, it's like, that's a big old buck, and it's pretty wild. That place has got a lot of big ones, but it's a very tough fishery. It's had a lot of pressure over the years. You know, from the internet exposure on social media nowadays. You know, it's had so much pressure that it makes it really tough. Like, you go out there and you go fishing, you're looking for 6 bites a day. Yeah. Really. Like, look for like 6. If you get 7 or 8 bites, you've probably done really well. Now, the quality is there. It ain't a matter of the quality. The quality is 100% there, you know? But it's just a matter of being able to go out there and catch the quality and make sure you get 5 in the boat. Like, I mean, you got to focus on getting 5 of them, you know, because it's the fish in there, they're too big or too healthy.
Well,
and they long ways by just getting 5 in the boat there.
Well, it's like you said, with internet and this everything they're seeing. OH Ivy, for example, in Texas. If you've seen it lately,
I have. I've seen it.
They've heard it.
I don't want to go there. I know that.
Oh yeah, it's I got a buddy that lives about 2.5 hours from it, and he was talking about going, and but it's like, you know, it's really cool what's come out of it, but it's going to put so much pressure on the lake, and it's like
done within a year.
It'll be
like the lakes. I mean, honestly, truly, like, we had a little lake here in North Carolina. I've never got to fish it, but I never even heard about it until, like, they went out there and they popped like a 48-pound bag out of it. Is Sharon Harris. It's Sharon Harris Reservoir and down towards I think it's towards the east coast of North Carolina. I've never been there, but, like, you know, I've heard about it, and I've had other buddies that went down there and fished it, and they're just like, man, it's not the same that it used to be. Like, you know, within a half a year, it went from producing 40 and 50-pound bags to, like, it's still got big ones in it, but they're really, really hard to catch. And you know, that's with the social media thing nowadays. It really is. It don't take no time to, you know, I was seeing all these big fish come out of OH Ivy, and I didn't even know about the lake. And then finally, it's just like, one of my buddies told me, he's like, dude, that's where they're coming from. They're coming from the lake. It's like, well, you better get there right now if you want to go down.
You should have been there yesterday. I mean, it's just, and it's like, it's going to be fished out. They're going to do it the same way, you know, when Fark, what was it, for earlier mid-2000s, Fark got like this big rep, and like you said, now you're fishing, the quantity's still there, but the fish are not, you know.
Not as plentiful, and they're really smart. You got to go down light line and stuff like that, and that's, you know, that's a big factor. You're sitting there fishing with 8-pound tests and some timber. That's a little sketchy.
Yeah, well, it's like they did the same thing. They had in Mississippi. I'm trying to think of the name. It was right out of Macomb. It was Bill Dance Signature Lake, and they just decided, like, to drain it down and do some work because they're, like, making a big resort now and everything. But people were talking about, like, I think the lake record's like right at 13 pounds out of this maybe 700 acre, 900 acre lake.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've fished it a couple times. I like fishing it, but it's like, if you can catch them, and it used to have a bunch of grass in it and everything, so it's like, if you could catch them on the frog bite in it, you were having a blast, because, you know, but it's like, when they were bedding, you was popping 4 and 5 pound fish off the beds regular, and it's like, they had some good fish in it, 8s and 10s, which was for the area really good fish. And it's like then it got this name of producing, you were catching on a Tuesday night tournament, they'd catch on a 5-fish limit, 25, 30 pounds.
Yeah.
So it started getting hammered all the time. And so it's like, then it's like, just, that's what social media is good and bad. Like it's,
It's a good thing, and it can be bad.
Yep.
It can put a lot of pressure on a lot of fish. I'll tell you, one of the coolest places that's just insane to me is Gunnersville, Alabama, and how many tournaments. I remember fishing in college, and we had like a 250, 280 some boat college tournament, and there's like 13 other tournaments that's over 100 boats apiece going out that same day. I'm like, dude, that's insane, and it still takes like, that's tournament I come in second and I had like 28 and a half pounds and got beat by like 29, and it's like it's still, and just to even be in like the top 20 you had to have like over like 22, 23. And it's like, dude, how does this place produce so much fish? Like, how does it stay just thriving with so many fish in it all the time, even with the pressure that it gets? It's like, think if that lake got off limits and was closed down for like a year or even a half year.
Yeah, 6 months to a year, what it would have.
Insane it really would be if you could go.
Well, it's like that. Sam Rayburn right there in Texas. You go there and it's like you said, every Saturday and Sunday there's 10 tournaments going on. It's just like tournament after tournament after tournament. It's like I was there January of 21 for the FLW, the one day what do you call it, the cowboy division there. The one day Cowboys Saturday tournament had 230 boats going out of it. And like what was crazy about that tournament was crappy weather. We had like 5-footers. Like it was horrible. And what's crazy about that lake is if you're going out the north end up at Humphrey Landing, and if you're going out Humphrey and like you got to go out into the lake to go anywhere, and like if it's a north wind coming into there, you're gonna fight waves. It could be like a 10-mile-an-hour north wind and it's gonna kick your butt. You could have a 20-mile-an-hour north wind and you're going out of like Boykins or something like that, and it's perfectly, like, it's not smooth, but it's like 2-footers. It's like, what the hell? It's like, but it was really cold, just crappy weather, and that's when Derek Monday put up the like 42-pound sack or whatever, and I was there, and he had like a 13.4 as his kicker or whatever, and it's like, he caught all his fish in 15 minutes that morning, and was watching them on. He said it's a spot about that. He talked about it a little bit. He said it's about the size of a tabletop, and it holds some good fish. And it was like the end of the month, he won that one. The end of the month, he was fishing the 3-day out of the 3-day one now there. It's like the opens. The first day he came in with like 18 pounds, and I think like 12 pounds, and I think Jason Kahn was fishing it or whatever. And I know Kahn's his last name. I think Jason's his first. He's a guide on Fork, and he was fishing it. The second day, they both came in with like 34-pound sacks or something, and it was like,
that's crazy.
Yeah, and it was like, they both, and I think Derek had like a 10. He had a 10 that day. Then on the final day, he had like a 12, and it's like, dude, really, like, it's like he knows the lake, but it's like that lake produces, and it's like it used to be like it that's how OHIV's going, doing like Rayburn's like that, produced a bunch of big ones. Now it just gets hammered all the time. I don't think it'll happen with Ivy because it's not as big, but it's like that's gonna hurt it too because they're just steady.
There's no pressure. All the pressure's going to be there, and there's no hide and go.
Yeah, and Texas has done an outstanding job with their like reproduction with the fish and everything. Like their Sherlunker. A lot of other states need to get involved in that. It's like, I'm from Louisiana, and it's like there's no reason we shouldn't have, like, we have some of the best fisheries in the world, but don't produce these giant fish. And it's like then like bass, for example, with like Red River up in Shreveport, they'll come and fish that. They won't hardly fish at all down south anymore. Just like when y'all go to Sabine, it's off limits to the Louisiana side due to the fact that there's so much private waters. And it's like, we're the only state that has private water. And it's like, and literally, like, you go fishing somewhere and, like, you go say, like, and it's been as bad as, like, you go fish somewhere this week, then go next, and that canal's private. Go a month later and it's private. It's like, what the, it's like, it's a whole other ball game down here when it comes to private water, but it's like, but the fishery in itself should be producing monster fish, but it's just not ran, you know. And but I mean, I don't want to keep you like all day here. I've enjoyed the conversation.
I've had a great time talking fishing. Anytime I can do that, I've always had a good time.
Hey, anytime you want to do this again, more than welcome. And so and like I said, I mean, I've enjoyed it. I'll probably pick your brain when I come up with some questions too, because it's just, you know, this is my passion's the outdoors in general, like deer hunting, fishing. Just if I can be outside doing it, I do it. And that, or you other than fishing, what's your outdoor activities?
Oh, same thing. Hunting, doing it all the time. I love to hunt and fish. And I mean, anytime. I mean, even if I'm just going like dove hunting or something like that, man, I love it, dude. I love being in the outdoors. That's my whole dream. I love to be out there in God's creation and enjoying God's creation, because it's beautiful. If you actually just sit down and just take a deep breath and just you sit there and you just look around, it's like you pay attention to all the little bitty details.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, you just look at the base of a tree, and there's some moss that grows up on the side of it, and it just goes all different directions, and it's just the craziest thing ever. And it's like, man, that was created by the good Lord. And it's just like it's awesome. It's incredible. I love doing it. I've had a great time talking with you, man. It's been awesome. It's been fun time. If y'all want to check out on queentackle.com, use KJQueen20 and get 20% off anything on our website, and help me out, and I appreciate that a lot.
All right. All right. Well, let me. I'm gonna get this stuff stopped. Hold on a second. Like, this is Julius Craig with DeltaFlauge Outdoors. We had KJ Queen in here today. It's been an amazing time. Look forward to picking his brain on some other stuff and keeping up with him this year and seeing how he does on the elite circuit.